Look at this. Carthage. This was the other choice that I gave everyone in the beginning. And I want to show you how the world looks like in Roma Surrectum. Because you can see a good comparison for those of you that... Oh man. For those of you that don't use any mods yet and are not sure what mods to get, you can see a pretty good comparison. First of all, the map looks worse. I think the maps looks better in extended cultures. That's the only thing I like more in extended cultures. Secondly, there are half as many cities. So those are two things I like more about extended cultures. First, the map looks worse here, I think, and secondly, there are twice as many cities in extended cultures. But as you can see, the graphics are completely different in this mod. But it makes it look really dead, like it looks so bland with so few cities. But we have the Seleucid Empire, and in this mod as well. They're at the same place, obviously, but this is earlier. This is way earlier. So all the black that you see in the map, all the black is a faction called Free People mostly, and these areas are like expandable areas. This is where factions will expand and eventually form into empires. Like this is Germania, I think. Cimbri. These are basically Germanian tribes. These are going to be expanding south and take over Germany. The Belgae are the British. They're going to be expanding to Great Britain sooner or later. And then we have the Arvini, which are basically the Celts, which are obviously at war with the Romans. And we have the Galaki, the Gauls, which are the Iberians. Yeah, that's my cat. That's porn cat, actually. He's an asshole right now. He's a fucking asshole right now. But as the Carthaginian faction, this faction is a lot more interesting, or this mod rather is a lot more interesting with the faction as well. You can see the units are very, very different. I have a lot more units to choose from, and it's an easier faction, to be honest. I mean, an easier mod. So here's what I did. Hannibal. I don't know how many of you know about Hannibal, but Hannibal is basically one of the two men that came closest to destroying the Roman Empire before the barbarian invasion. So Hannibal starts around I think he starts around here, like in between these two cities. And Hannibal was a man that he's a Carthaginian. He was the son of the king. He invaded the Romans with an army. He traveled from Carthage with an army of elephants, cavalry, and Carthaginians. He traveled across all of northern Africa. He traveled to Iberia, and where he defeated a bunch of tribes, or a bunch of different smaller tribes, and helped take the cities. He traveled all the way across the coastline because he was determined to take out the Romans. That was his ultimate goal. Through the border to France, over to the border towards the Italian peninsula. He traveled across the Alps with the fucking elephants. Now keep in mind, the fucking elephants are now on the other side of Europe, or on another continent, because elephants are not in fucking Europe. So he traveled to fucking snowy mountains with elephants, and at this point he had one this is a true story. He had one elephant alive, and that was his own elephant. All the other ones died after crossing the Alps because of the cold and shit. And then he met some more. He traveled all the way here, met some more tribes. He defeated some of them. He made some of them join. So by the time he reached Arretium and Arminium, which is where the campaign starts, he had German troops, he had Celtic troops, Carthaginian troops, and Iberian troops. He had a mass army of different troops from different countries that had the same goal as him, that wanted to take out the Romans. So his army was like half as big, even though he had all the rebels, or not the rebels, but even though he had all the tribes, his army was half as big as what it was before he left Carthage, because the army had died due to exhaustion and due to freezing to death, and yeah, those two means basically a war. But by the time he got here, this is where the campaign starts. He was defeated by the general that he met on this field. Mercenaries, yeah. And the general that defeated him also starts here in turn 1 in the campaign. So turn 1 as Carthage, you have that battle where Hannibal was defeated. And in my campaign, Hannibal won against that, and he won a huge victory, defeated the entire legion. And in my campaign, Hannibal's army split into two forces. One went to Arretium, the other went to Roma. Roma was taken and exterminated. I did not want to keep Roma, I wanted to exterminate it. I took Roma, I exterminated it, I burnt all the buildings down. I took Arretium, exterminated Arretium, burnt all the buildings down. Same with Arminium, burnt everything down, exterminated everyone. And I was on my way to Capua when I met 2 more legions that had traveled from Sicily, because Rome tries to take Sicily, or does take Sicily in the beginning. They have 2 legions here. Those 2 legions have now traveled up towards the main peninsula to take back Rome. And what happened was that just before I was able to take Capua, which is their second most powerful city after Rome, taking that would be like destroying it completely, basically, because that's like their last stronghold. But I was unable to do that. I had to retreat with Hannibal. I retreated with Hannibal to Roma, where I held ground for 2 more turns, and then I found the legions coming up. By the time I realized that I had to retreat, I now had boats in the Roman docks, ready to retreat with Hannibal. At that time, there were 2 legionary armies, or legions, I should say, and they were parked outside of Rome. They had literally 1 step to go before they had sieged Roma, trapped Hannibal, killed his army, and killed his legendary status, or forever put him into history, into the books of history in my campaign. So what happened was Hannibal managed to escape. He went into the docks in my campaign, just barely at the last turn, dodged the the Roman naval invasion. What am I saying? The Roman naval units. He went to Illyria, which is why I have it now, and he was stationed there. He took Illyria, held ground there, was stationed there for a few turns, and then the Romans followed me into Illyria, followed Hannibal. So the 1 legion followed Hannibal, but this time the army was so small, I was so sure I was going to lose this. Hannibal was dead. But, and you can see this battle in past broadcasts, you just have to find it, because I did all of this live. This battle I actually won. Incredibly enough, I defeated a full legion. This is now the 2nd legion that Hannibal had defeated with his broken army of different tribes and mercenaries and exhausted men. 2 freaking legions fell to that man, to Hannibal. So with any units alive, barely any units alive, I escaped from Illyria before more legions would chase me down and finish off Hannibal. Escaped to Illyria. I met halfway outside of Corrales, met halfway with reinforcement from Carthage. I mixed the 2 fleets. So Carthage, or Hannibal, would now get almost full army again for the 2nd time. I want to strangle my cat. And then, before returning home with Hannibal, which now, in my opinion, earned his way home, he attacked Corrales, which was also Roman, and successfully sieged it, successfully took it over. So that's why Corrales is now mine. And here we have Hannibal. Hannibal, the national leader. I made him the leader. The king died, and this guy, I made him the faction heir. That's what I meant to say. And look at his command. Look at his fucking command. It's amazing. And this is now where Hannibal stands. I gotta get him out. That's my next goal, is to replace him with Bisaltes. because I gotta get him home, back to safety, back to Carthage. And that's where I've gotten in this campaign so far.